It was a busy Thursday morning at the Maple Ridge International Airport. Travelers moved like clockwork, dragging their luggage, sipping coffee, chasing connecting flights. Business as usual. Among them was a young woman, her face pale, eyes darting nervously behind a pair of dark sunglasses. She cradled a baby stroller gently, the child inside fast asleep beneath a soft fleece blanket. Customs agents barely glanced at her. A mother with a baby hardly suspicious. But someone else had noticed something. Something they couldn't ignore. A highly trained sniffer dog named Hunter, assigned to the airport's customs unit, suddenly stiffened. His posture snapped alert. Nose twitching. Eyes locked on the stroller. His handler tugged lightly on the leash, expecting the dog to relax. He didn't. Instead, Hunter let out a sharp bark, then lunged forward with force, dragging his handler toward the woman. Before anyone could react, the dog leapt into the stroller, landing just beside the baby, who woke up crying. There was a collective gasp. Then clink. A small, metallic object tumbled out from beneath the blanket, landing on the polished floor with a cold thud. It didn't look like a toy. It didn't look like anything that should have been in a stroller. Silence. Security officers stood frozen, eyes locked on the strange, dark object. Then someone shouted, "Lock it down! Back everyone up!" Panic surged. Within seconds, the terminal transformed from orderly to chaos. Customs agents rushed to clear the area. The woman was pulled away from the stroller and restrained, her cries lost in the rising noise. "Please, don't hurt my baby." Overhead, loudspeakers blared. "Attention all passengers. Please evacuate Terminal C immediately." Red lights flashed. Metal gates began descending over passageways. The object, now surrounded by tactical security, was roughly the size of a fist and partially wrapped in heat-resistant foil. Someone whispered, "Is that a bomb?" But no one was sure. The bomb squad was called in. Tension crackled in the air. People screamed. Some recorded on their phones from behind glass windows. Others ran without looking back. Mothers held their children close. Airport staff huddled near emergency exits. And at the center of it all, one small child in a stroller, and a dog who had just uncovered something that would unravel a dangerous international secret. The bomb squad approached the object cautiously, armored suits gleaming under harsh airport lights. A small mechanical arm extended from their robot, gently lifting the metallic item that had fallen from the stroller. What they found stunned them. It wasn't a bomb. It was a lead-lined box, about the size of a jewelry case, meticulously sealed, heavy for its size, hidden deliberately under the baby's blanket, right beneath where the dog had leapt. Why lead-lined? Veteran officers exchanged glances. This kind of casing was designed to block airport scanners, a method typically used to smuggle something far more dangerous than cash or jewels. The robot's arm carefully unlatched the container. A soft hiss escaped as the lid opened. Inside, a military-grade microchip, protected in a cushion mold. Sleek, small, silent, but its implications? Explosive. One of the agents swore under his breath. That's restricted tech. This wasn't just any chip. It was a prototype, part of a classified AI defense system stolen months ago from a secured facility in Eastern Europe. This single microchip, no larger than a fingernail, held the power to control automated weapons, drones, and encrypted communications for an entire battalion. Exporting it? Federal crime. Possessing it? An international incident. Suddenly, this wasn't about one woman and her baby. It was about espionage, smuggling, and a network far bigger than anyone had imagined. The woman, who had been sobbing softly as agents hovered over the stroller, was finally approached. Two officers flanked her, weapons lowered but hands firm. "Ma'am, step away from the stroller." She didn't resist. Arya Lin, 29 years old, no criminal record, dual citizenship, born in Shanghai, raised in Canada. A translator by profession. No red flags. Nothing in her background hinted at any connection to arms dealing, espionage, or underground networks. As they cuffed her hands, she looked down, heart visibly pounding beneath her coat. Her eyes, wide and full of fear, scanned the crowd for her baby, now being gently cradled by a female agent. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She simply whispered, her voice cracking, "Please, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." One officer hesitated, thrown off by her tone. She wasn't combative. She wasn't cold. She looked like a woman caught in something far beyond her control. But the law was the law. She was separated from her child. Her fate, uncertain. Her intentions, still unclear. But one thing was becoming obvious. Arya Lynn was not the villain they expected. And the truth, when it finally surfaced, would change everything. In a cold, windowless room beneath the airport, Arya Lynn sat alone. Her wrists were cuffed to the table. A single camera blinked red in the corner. Across from her, 2 agents from Homeland Security stared, stone-faced, waiting. The silence dragged. Finally, Agent Monroe leaned forward. "You have one chance to explain, Ms. Lynn. Why was that chip in your baby's stroller?" Arya looked up, her face pale but her eyes burning with something deeper. Not guilt, resolve. And then, slowly, trembling but clear, she spoke. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I just wanted to save my son." She began to unravel her story. Not one of a criminal, but of a woman cornered by betrayal, fear, and an impossible choice. Her voice cracked as she spoke about a man she once trusted, a man she had once loved, and how he had nearly destroyed everything. Years ago, Arya Lynn wasn't a suspect under interrogation. She was a rising star in artificial intelligence, celebrated in both academic and government circles. Brilliant, driven, and deeply passionate about ethical tech. She believed in building systems that saved lives, not took them. That's when she met Ethan Roy, charismatic, powerful, and already embedded deep within military contracting. Their romance bloomed quickly. On paper, they were a dream team, Arya the innovator, Ethan the executor. They married, had a child, built a life. But as the years passed, Arya began noticing discrepancies. Her prototypes, designed for humanitarian purposes, were being re-engineered and sold overseas. Her access was quietly revoked from systems she herself had built. Ethan, once her biggest supporter, had grown secretive, controlling, and then she found out the truth. Ethan wasn't just leveraging her brilliance. He was using it. He had created a black market operation, smuggling military-grade AI components to foreign buyers. Her name was all over the designs. If it came to light, she'd go down with him. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. Instead, he warned her, coldly, threatened her with everything she loved, including their son. When she refused to stay silent, things turned dark, violent. He used his influence to twist the system, claimed Arya was unstable, obsessive, even dangerous. In court, he manipulated records, hired powerful lawyers. Arya lost custody of their son. Broken, hunted, and labeled a traitor by the man she once called husband, Arya vanished, went off the grid, changed her identity. For 2 years, she stayed in the shadows, gathering evidence. And then she found it. The chip. It was the smoking gun. Not just a blueprint. It was a functioning piece of stolen technology, directly linked to Ethan's network. If she could get it to the right hands, she could finally expose him, reclaim her name, and her son. That's why she boarded the plane. That's why she risked everything. But the plan had backfired. Now, sitting under a harsh interrogation light, Arya looked at the agents and whispered, "I wasn't smuggling it. I was delivering it, to save lives, and to stop him." As agents continued to search the stroller, they quickly realized the microchip was only the beginning. What looked like an ordinary set of baby essentials. A soft rattle, a sippy cup, the underside of a formula tin, was in fact an ingeniously disguised cache of damning evidence. Inside the lid of the milk bottle, they discovered a rolled micro-SD card, wrapped in wax paper, waterproofed and heat-sealed. Hidden inside the base of the rattle, a miniature flash drive secured behind the removable weight. Even the baby blanket stitching concealed a narrow strip of paper, coordinates and names. Handwritten, deliberate. Each item had been modified with the precision of someone who understood surveillance and was terrified of being watched. One of the agents popped open the SIM card they'd retrieved from the rattle. As it loaded, encrypted folders sprang to life. Audio recordings of hushed arguments between Arya and Ethan. His threats, her warnings. Blueprints of defense-grade neural interfaces. Marked, confidential export restricted. Emails from anonymous sources, from Ethan's own internal servers, revealing shipment routes, payments, code words. A payment ledger traced to offshore accounts, including deposits from a foreign buyer flagged by U.S. intelligence. Everything Ethan had done. Every step he took to weaponize Arya's work and erase her existence. It was all here. The agents exchanged glances. One muttered under his breath, "This isn't smuggling. This is a war cry." And it had all been hidden inside a baby stroller. Not for profit. Not to sabotage. But to be seen. To finally be heard. The more they dug, the more the truth became undeniable. Arya Lynn wasn't a criminal. She was a whistleblower. A mother, a scientist, and a victim, using her last ounce of strength to do what governments had failed to do. She didn't want money. She wasn't trying to disappear into another life. She was trying to uncover the truth. Her intended destination wasn't a black market buyer or covert drop point. It was Montreal, where an award-winning investigative journalist, Claire Duval, had agreed to meet her. They had only exchanged encrypted messages, but Claire understood the stakes. She had broken defense scandals before. Arya had hoped that once the story went public, Ethan's empire would crumble, and she could finally win back her son. The lead-line box, which first triggered the chaos, had been a desperate safety measure, not to deceive customs, but to protect the chip from remote detection. Ethan had people everywhere. She knew he monitored airport scans. If he had any inkling of her plan, he'd silence her before she reached the boarding gate. But none of this had gone according to plan. The baby had cried at the wrong moment. A sharp whine that had triggered the attention of the K9 unit. And Hunter, the trained customs dog, had done exactly what he was trained to do, alert and protect. And now, the woman who risked everything to stop a global threat sat alone in a concrete cell, branded a smuggler, while the real traitor walked free. But that was about to change, because the truth was no longer hidden. While Arya remained confined in a sterile interrogation room, the government's machines began to move. Fast. The FBI, along with international cybercrime units, scrambled to verify the mountain of evidence Arya had unwittingly dropped in their laps. Forensic experts combed through the data from the SIM card, cross-referencing emails and coordinates. Encryption specialists decrypted the audio files with feverish precision. Within hours, the truth came flooding through. Arya Lynn's claims were legitimate. The neural interfaces, the weapons-grade microchip, the underground network of rogue defense contractors, it all added up. Arya had been right. She hadn't just stumbled across her husband's crimes. She had uncovered a full-blown international conspiracy. The military-grade microchip was crucial. It had been embedded in a top-secret AI defense system designed to track and disable military satellites. A tool Ethan's associates had intended to sell to the highest bidder. Countries with controversial leaders, ones whose actions the United States had been watching closely. The blueprints of these covert technologies, designed by Arya herself, were invaluable and dangerous. Arya had unknowingly been the key to unraveling a massive global arms deal. A deal involving her husband, Ethan Roy, and shadowy figures overseas. As the final files were uploaded, an alert pinged on the desk of the FBI's lead agent. Ethan Roy, a U.S. defense contractor, had been spotted. He was preparing to leave the country using forged documents. The truth was coming, and it was coming fast. The operation was swift. No one dared to underestimate the man who had orchestrated so much, but now he was the one running scared. A private hangar on the outskirts of the city became the focal point of the raid. Armed with search warrants and the full weight of the U.S. government, agents poured into the facility like a storm, sweeping through rooms packed with illicit materials and contraband. There, inside a vault, they found the forged passports and illegal components meant for another shipment. Parts designed to control military-grade drones, communication interceptors, and cyber weapons. Aria's nightmare was now theirs. But there was more. In a secret compartment behind a wall of steel crates, agents uncovered documents that left them shocked. A dossier detailing a second shipment, bigger than anything before. Aria had been right all along. This wasn't just a smuggling operation. It was global treason. And then, under the intense pressure of the investigation, with his escape route cut off and nowhere left to run, Ethan Roy cracked. In an interrogation room filled with flickering lights and the relentless clicking of a typewriter, Ethan looked across at his accusers. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His once chiseled face now seemed weary, defeated. "I didn't mean for any of this," he muttered, staring down at the table. "I didn't know it would go this far. But I had to protect my business, my legacy. I never thought it would cost me everything." But the walls had already closed in. The partial confession came too late to save his reputation. The agents exchanged knowing glances. Ethan Roy was going down. As the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists, Aria's face flashed in their minds. The truth had finally broken free, and it had been her all along who had been carrying it, hidden in plain sight. But there was still a price to pay. The waiting room was cold, but Aria barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, far from the sterile walls of the federal courthouse, and deep into the thoughts of Leo, her baby boy, who was now somewhere safe, far from the chaos. She had fought for so long, to protect her son, to expose the truth, to clear her name. And now, after the storm of lies and secrets had cleared, she was finally breathing again. The moment came swiftly, almost unexpectedly. Charges were dropped. No longer would she be a fugitive, no longer would she be seen as a criminal. The investigation had proven what Aria had known all along. She had acted out of desperation, yes, but also out of necessity. She had been betrayed by the one person she thought she could trust, and now the truth had set her free. But freedom, she realized, was more than just physical. It was emotional, too. Aria was granted a place in the Federal Whistleblower Protection Program, her new identity a shield against those who would still seek to silence her. But rather than disappear into the shadows, Aria found herself determined to make something meaningful of the pain and destruction she'd endured. She had come through hell, but she hadn't done it alone. And now she wanted to help others like her. She began working with a tech NGO, one focused on supporting women in crisis, those who were silenced, exploited, or left in the wake of men like Ethan. Through her work, Aria could channel the anger, hurt, and confusion into building a safer world for women, giving them the resources and strength they needed to escape situations like the one she had narrowly survived. The reunion wasn't grand or dramatic, but it was everything. Aria stood in the quiet, peaceful home she'd been provided with as part of the Witness Protection Program. The sunlight filtered in through the windows, casting soft rays on the floor. And there, in the living room, was Leo, a bundle of joy in a new, safe world. She didn't know what to say at first, staring at the baby she had fought for with all her strength. His giggle filled the room, and in that moment, it didn't matter that the world outside still carried the weight of her past. Leo was here, and that was enough. Then, as if sensing the moment's significance, the door creaked open, and Hunter, the sniffer dog, trotted in. He had been a key part of the ordeal, his nose leading them to the discovery of the chip that ultimately cracked the case. But now, in this moment, he was nothing more than a friendly, loyal companion, a symbol of hope and protection. Leo's eyes lit up as he saw Hunter approach. His laughter echoed again, his tiny arms reaching out in glee, just as they had when Hunter had first jumped into the stroller. It was as if the circle had come full. Hunter, too, seemed to recognize the depth of this moment. His tail wagged, and he gently nudged Leo's feet with his nose, as if to say, "We did it. We kept him safe." Aria couldn't hold back the tears. She knelt down, pulling her son close. The world, for once, seemed still. And in that stillness, Aria realized how much she had truly lost, and how much she had regained. The journey had been brutal, and the cost had been steep. But in the end, Arya had broken free from the chains of her past. And with Leo in her arms, and Hunter by their side, she could finally look toward the future. A future full of hope. It had been several months since Arya's life had been completely turned upside down. Her new life, though far from ordinary, had started to settle into a sense of normalcy. Leo was thriving in the peaceful environment, and Arya had found a rhythm working with the NGO, helping others just like her. But this day was different. There was something extra special in the air. The doorbell rang, a sound that now felt foreign but welcome. Arya opened the door and found herself face to face with an all-too-familiar sniffer dog, Hunter. Wagging his tail excitedly, his handler standing beside him. Hunter's eyes met Arya's, and for a moment, it was as though the weight of the entire ordeal had melted away. In his eyes was not just the proud, determined dog who had unearthed the evidence. No, in those eyes was something deeper. A quiet understanding that they had shared a journey together. Arya bent down, her hands trembling slightly as she reached into a jar and pulled out a metal-shaped dog biscuit. She held it up to Hunter, who sat obediently in front of her, tail wagging. She smiled warmly and spoke softly, almost to herself. "You weren't just sniffing danger, you were sniffing out the truth." Hunter's tail wagged harder, almost as if he understood every word. He took the biscuit gently from her hand, and Arya could see the bond between them, one that had been forged not just in the heat of the moment, but through an enduring trust that had helped save not just her life, but her future. The handler, standing behind Hunter, nodded approvingly. "He's not just a dog, he's a hero, and I think you two make quite the pair." Arya stood, her hand resting on Hunter's back as they all shared a quiet moment. It was a scene of peace, but also one of reflection. She turned toward the audience, her expression a mixture of gratitude and determination. With a deep breath, she spoke, her voice carrying weight. "Not all heroes wear badges. Some just wag their tails and follow their instincts." Her gaze lingered on Hunter, then drifted toward Leo, who was now playing in the background, safe and sound. The message was clear: the true heroes are often those we least expect. The ones who act selflessly without hesitation because they know what's right. In the end, truth and justice hadn't been determined by medals or awards, but by the loyalty of a dog who never gave up, and a mother who fought for her son and herself, no matter the odds. As Arya's story fades into the background, the message remains. In the pursuit of truth, sometimes the most unlikely heroes come forward, and they don't always look like the ones you might expect. They look like Hunter and they look like Arya. As the story of Arya, Hunter, and little Leo concludes, it's time for you to get involved in the conversation. What would you have done in Arya's shoes? Would you have risked everything to expose the truth? Or would you have stayed hidden in fear? How far would you go for your loved ones and what you believe is right? Should sniffer dogs like Hunter receive national honors? These canine heroes often go unnoticed despite the critical roles they play in ensuring public safety and uncovering hidden truths. Do you think they deserve more recognition for their loyalty and bravery? We want to hear from you. Comment Dogface if you believe in second chances, whether it's for humans or heroes on four legs like Hunter. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories of unexpected heroes. Stay tuned for more emotional tales that will keep you hooked till the very end.